It's now or next. Diária reduzida. Sete sustentável. Me responde, querida. Thank you. Tomorrow. So come hora extra. It's now or next. Nesse prazo é treta. Quando te conheci, eu aceitava de tudo. Yes, I did. Filmava mais que dormia. E então veio a pandemia. It's now or next. Não dá pra aceitar. A verba tá de lascar. Vamos burn out our. Thank you. It's now or next. Saúde mental não pode ficar pra outro carnaval. Thank you very much. Anybody got a...
Olá, turma. Bom dia. Vamos lá. Começando o próximo painel. Tem algum recado?
Para a gente falar a senha e a rede.
Ah, tá.
É cultura _ guest e a senha é cultura 1121.
O cultura, o A é o arroba, né? Gente, um recadinho aqui que o pessoal da produção pediu para passar, que muita gente está pedindo Wi-Fi. Então, a rede é cultura_guest. A senha é cultura, mas o A do final é um arroba 1121. Tá certo? Se precisarem, a gente está aqui com a senha. Cultura, o A é um arroba 1121. Bora lá. Vamos lá, dando sequência ao nosso próximo painel do dia. Narrativas líquidas, a retomada de conteúdos longos. Esse é um painel internacional, então a gente vai falar aqui metade inglês, metade português, enfim. Vou chamar ao palco o Felipe Turlão, jornalista do Propaganda e Marketing, que vai estar aqui mediando esse painel. Ian, SBF, sócio fundador do Porta dos Fundos e diretor da O2. Seja bem-vindo, Ian. Vou te pedir só para tirar a máscara aqui no palco, porque a gente está fazendo transmissão, o pessoal te vê bonitinho. Pode ficar à vontade. E now, our international guest, very special, Eric Stern, Managing Director Anonymous. First time in Brazil. We are really happy to have you here. Obrigada, pessoal. Turlão, com você.
Obrigado. Well, I speak Portuguese as a native language, and Eric speaks English as a native language. Ian speaks Portuguese, so we agree that we will speak in French here to make it clear for everyone. Just kidding. Well, some words in Portuguese. Excuse me, Eric. Okay. O tema é conteúdo líquido, e acho que assim temos dois grandes exemplos, dois grandes profissionais, two great professionals that work with content, e a gente quer saber o tipo de trabalho, o approach para eles sobre conteúdo líquido, como que eles estão lidando com isso no seu dia a dia, né? E se vocês concordam que os formatos longos estão de volta, né? Estão retomando sua força, que é o tema proposto para o debate, e entender principalmente o tipo de trabalho que vocês estão fazendo a partir desse approach, né? Então, Eric, in English, we wanted to talk about liquid content and how are you dealing with this in your day? We have some translation to Portuguese if you prefer. So please tell me first. I think we can start with Eric. tell me about your work now, what you're doing now, and how you're approaching liquid content and long formats content, please.
Well, first of all, it's really a pleasure to be here. It is my first time in Brazil, and I've had a really wonderful couple of days. So, thank you, and thanks to the WEX group for having me. I think it's a really interesting time right now, where we're starting. Well, not starting. We're really well into brands finding and looking for and starting to find opportunities and places to communicate to their audiences. Traditionally, as we all know, and what was really the foundation of television in the States was advertising, paid for all of the shows that we all love because they put their ads on the networks and they made the money to pay for the shows. Excuse me. Now what we're seeing is an opportunity and a curiosity from brands to express themselves in sometimes, and what I think from anonymous content standpoint, is an opportunity to express themselves at a sort of a larger brand ethos perspective and align themselves with content that speaks to the core values of the brand and what the brand wants to communicate to its target audience, not through direct advertising commercial production, which is where I've come up through, but through entertainment, through providing an experience, an emotional experience, a story. And so just less than 4 years ago, we started inside the company a group called The Lab. And inside The Lab, the goal is to really give an opportunity for brands to come into Anonymous, where we're producing television and film and managing talent as an entertainment company. And in addition to producing on the commercial side, which we've been doing for 20 some odd years, giving brands an opportunity to participate in the entertainment side of the company. And so it's been a really interesting experience the last few years, building that business up where we're not traditionally working in the brand space as work for hire, where an advertising agency or a brand will develop its campaign and they hire us to shoot it, and it's a very familiar traditional model, to turning the tables, to listening to what a brand needs and trying to build an entertainment opportunity around that. So it's a little bit of a reverse of the traditional roles, and it's been really interesting. It's difficult, and we can talk more about the why and the what of it, but it's been really exciting too to be able to approach the brand space in a very different way. So we've been doing that a lot.
Okay. Yeah, if you prefer to speak Portuguese, I think it's better.
I do prefer, but I will try to because I don't want to let him in the dark. So for me, it's interesting because I'm a director and I have my own company, and we started on YouTube. So for us, it's funny because the content and brands, we started with that. You know, we are not doing this movement later. Actually, now we are trying to como é que chama separar?
Split.
To split because. But I don't think it's very smart. I think we are doing the old things. We need to continue in this movement because yes, it makes sense. But we started like this, and it's very interesting. See how the world is becoming, and I don't know for you, but for us in Brazil and here with everybody, we are trying to understand where we are going, because it's difficult to understand this new world, isn't it?
Yes, you try to figure out how to deal with this new world here.
Yeah, because everything is changing so fast. I mean, it's crazy.
Please. Eric, I don't know if people know that, but Eric's company, Anonymous, they did a great case in advertising history that was the hire for BMW. It was 20 years ago, and because of this case, the Cannes Lions, they decided to establish the Titanium Lions. So we're talking about entertainment and advertising. It was 20 years ago, and it was working very well. It changed the industry. How do you see something from 20 years ago seems like something that was made in the last week?
It's a great question, and I think it's a little bit of our, in a way, a North Star in the opportunity for brands to be developing entertainment, because it was the first time, ultimately, that this brand, BMW, just walked away from focusing the intention of the filmmaking on the product. It was everywhere, of course, but the intention was around hiring a director, a feature film director, and a cast, and a story. And then all of that would just happen in the product. And so it was really the first shift away from, when I say brand ethos, brands not, in a way, not, they still have to sell their cars, and at that time, and still today, they do very specific advertising for vehicles, et cetera. But from a branding standpoint, BMW, through the course of those films, realized a tremendous amount of growth because people understood and felt what the brand was about because of the films. And each of them very different. I think one of the ways that I see well, right now, I think there's a very interesting sort of convergence. Advertising in the traditional marketing sense is really it works very much looking at it works backwards from specific points in time. A need for advertising around the Super Bowl or the holidays. We need the holiday, so from 9 months before that, they start working on what they're going to have for that. Entertainment works the other way around. It doesn't matter when it's ready, it just matters what it is. And so getting the thinking aligned between the marketing people who are kind of looking backwards from when they need to have it finished, and entertainment, which is looking forward only to opportunity to make something really great, is the challenge in it. And then the business that flows from that, the urgency in advertising versus the less urgency in entertainment, it's almost like two different languages. And so we have the fortunate benefit of having both of those languages spoken within our company, but it's been a lot of educating of brands and marketing teams who are used to working in a certain modality to have to shift and work in a different way. And time is a big factor. Creating entertainment is really hard to do on a very strict schedule, right? Once something is built and you have a television show and it's in production, yes, it can happen very quickly. But there are thousands of ideas that get pitched that don't end up being produced, and so the process of finding the best one takes a lot of time, and the same with film. So advertising and entertainment work almost in opposite directions, and I think that's for us, the biggest challenge, and as I say, what I've had to do the most amount of educating clients around. I think we find that, I'm just sort of wandering around here, but I think we find that in the non-scripted space, in the reality space, finding real stories in the real world, we can control a lot more because it exists. And you either want to do that or you don't. You want to tell the story of the chef in New York City, whatever. He's there, the thing's there, it's all, you can discover it and know what it is. But to hand an idea to a writer and have the writer use their imagination to come up with something, well, it may not be right and it may need to be revised, and it's a much longer creative process. And that creative process tends to not fit inside of the timelines that advertising requires. So looking forward, I think the convergence of those two different directions into something a little more common ground will make creating entertainment for brands a bunch easier. And I think that probably will happen as folks start to transition out of brands and out of marketing and commercial and advertising into the brand space. As soon as they move across, we'll be speaking to people who understand a different sort of language. So, yeah.
Yeah, of course, advertising and entertainment are going different ways. But Porta, I read a recent research made, I think Datafolha made a research that shows that most of the brand insertion in your videos are natural. Most of the people think that these brand inceptions are very natural in Porta dos Fundos video. That's true?
Sorry, I switched to português.
Some Portuguese.
Senão fica difícil. Mas sim, que nem eu estava falando no começo, é muito engraçado, né? Às vezes a gente nem pensa sobre isso quando a gente não está realmente aqui falando disso, pensando nisso. Mas é engraçado, eu sou diretor da O2 também, e eu consigo ver hoje as diferenças, né, de uma produtora que começou 30 anos atrás, ou Porta, que começou há 10 anos atrás, mas já num ambiente completamente diferente, que vem do YouTube. E a gente começou logo nos o primeiro vídeo, acho que a gente lançou, o quarto vídeo que o Porta lançou era o Espoleto. E não era um branding, mas para as pessoas já virou um branding, e foi da onde veio o nosso primeiro dinheiro. Foi onde entrou ali. Então foi logo com 4 meses de companhia, e a gente já entendeu, logo naquele começo, como é que a gente ia ganhar dinheiro. E a gente não sabia como é que a gente ia ganhar dinheiro. Só que é curioso, né? Como eu disse antes, a gente, depois de 10 anos, a gente começa a ver que a gente começa a fazer assim, e as outras produtoras começam a fazer assim, e aí a gente, nossa, nesse momento a gente fala, será que é isso que a gente tem que fazer? Óbvio que não, mas eu acho que é uma coisa natural. Mas eu acho que o Brasil ele tem uma diferença, quando eu escuto o Eric falando, muito também interessante de pensar, quando a gente fala de conteúdo, entretenimento no geral, as localidades, né? Porque, com certeza, as estratégias de uma produtora como a do Eric, ele tem outros percalços na frente dele, diferente da gente, quando eu vejo a O2, quando eu vejo qualquer outra produtora no Brasil, quando eu vejo o Porta, é muito difícil você fazer um planejamento, por exemplo, como é que eu vou estar daqui a 10 anos, como é que eu vou estar daqui a 2 anos, como é que eu vou estar daqui a 1 ano. Todo mundo aqui que está numa produtora, sabe como é que o mercado daqui a 2 meses ele fala, agora é comédia, não quero mais saber de nada. Não, agora é filme de ação. E o pior, agora não tem mais cinema. E a gente tem no nosso histórico, né, se você for olhar nos últimos 50 anos, olha isso, né, a política pública, como é que ela muda. Então, qualquer pessoa de uma produtora tem que ficar assim, peraí, agora o streaming é minha única opção. Ah, não, o streaming agora é minha salvação. Ah, hoje o streaming está... Então, assim, é muito difícil você realmente traçar uma meta para... Imagina como é que isso é dentro de uma produtora de projetos você tem que fazer para daqui a 5 anos você não faz a menor ideia do que é. Então, assim, é interessante de ver, são estratégias completamente diferentes e modos de ver completamente diferentes.
Interessante porque o Porta está internacionalizando sua operação, né? E você está lidando com novos mercados e novas maneiras de ver, né? Acho que para você é super interessante perceber essas diferenças, né?
Cara, completamente. Culturalmente, eu até nem falei direito, Eric, mas a gente também tem questão política no Brasil, né? Então, assim, de 4 em 4 anos, a gente não faz a menor ideia se a gente vai ter incentivos fiscais, se a gente não vai ter, se a gente vai ser caçado ou não, ou se a gente vai ter um momento, sabe, há 2 meses atrás a gente não fazia a menor ideia qual seria o futuro. Isso que eu quero dizer da nossa falta de visibilidade. Mas sim, a gente faz no México, a gente lançou na Polônia e é totalmente diferente. Então, assim, é interessante, né, quando a gente tem a possibilidade de trabalhar com outras produtoras também, com o nosso conteúdo, da gente ver, meu Deus, como a cultura faz diferença. Não só a cultura, né, mas as localidades, como é diferente, como você precisa trabalhar de maneira diferente. Não é só uma outra produtora. No México é completamente diferente.
Eric, eu vou perguntar em português, né, para que você ouça em inglês aí pela tradutora. Como que você enxerga esses novos centros de produção de conteúdo mundial, né? Novas formas, novos olhares para se fazer conteúdo. Você está no centro mundial do entretenimento, né? No coração do entretenimento. E como que você enxerga outras formas de produção, seja da Coreia? Especialmente, queria que você desse uma visão sobre o Brasil. Como que vocês têm visto o tipo de conteúdo e entretenimento produzidos aqui, especialmente nesse mix entre advertising, entre publicidade e entretenimento?
It's interesting. I spent the day yesterday looking at a lot of the work from the festival that was really interesting. It was really interesting to see. I think the work in Brazil specifically, well, let me just say the work in every part of the world has its own flavor informed by its own culture. I'm stating the obvious, but I think what we're seeing from the brand's perspective is a globalization, an interest in a much more global reaching communication. So what can we produce that is applicable in Brazil as well as Korea? What can we produce? This is in conversations that we're having with brands looking towards what kinds of entertainment opportunities we can develop, but the idea of a sort of a global entertainment opportunity, global entertainment experience is now more so than ever the focus, the focus. I think the work coming out of Brazil or Spain or France or the US or Canada or Korea all has its different flavors, and well, just seeing the work from yesterday, I was really inspired, and it really blew me away. It was really beautiful. So I'm not sure if I'm answering your question totally, but yeah.
Okay, can you tell us a little bit about your recent work? What are the things you are doing? What are the technologies you are using? NFTs, multiverse, etc. Yeah. Give us some exciting work from you.
We jumped into the Web3 space just as the cryptocurrency world crashed. And we came to it thinking, how can we as Anonymous, a premium content producer, come into this space and build something really premium, really beautifully executed, high-end conceptual entertainment. And so we partnered with one of our clients inside the company. Anonymous is essentially a commercial company, a studio of film, a studio of television, and a management company. And in the management company, we manage almost 1,000 writers, directors, actors, you name it. And one of the clients that we have is a guy named Phil Gelat, and Phil wrote a series called Love, Death, and Robots, which is on Netflix. And we thought, Phil, we had worked with him on another project for Skittles, and we got to know him, and he has really the kind of brain that we thought, I wonder if he's into the Web3 world. And of course he was, and he had an incredible idea for how to mount a piece of entertainment in that space. We got just up to the point where we were starting to raise funds, and we developed a whole series of NFTs of artwork that would drop and raise money for the production. It was animated, and then the sort of bottom fell out of the crypto world, and no one's spending money and anything. So that has been a really interesting space, and I expect that it will come back. It will level off and come back. Let's see, what else have we been up to? We just finished a really interesting unscripted series for Adobe, who came to us and wanted to make a story about one particular designer and really just tell his story. And we took that idea and said maybe we could take, well, about the same amount of money, a little bit more, and instead of making 1 2-hour documentary feature, let's make 3 30-minute short films. And instead of just about creativity, let's try and focus it down into something that the brand can stand behind. And so we came up with an angle on it that was identifying, finding, and telling the stories of creative people at a very specific point of a creative challenge. So we have a designer from Mexico who did the 1968 logo for the Olympics. We have the designer of the World Trade Center, architect, and we have a data visualist, a woman designer, an Italian designer in New York City. And we told their stories, not using the brand, there's no Adobe anywhere other than Adobe Presents. And we just delivered the films, and they were extremely happy with them. And it was a really, I think, one of the first times where we could identify what they wanted, what we could bring to it. We had the filmmakers, we had the know-how to create the entertainment and deliver it. Ultimately, now we'll hopefully sell it to a streamer. We have interest from a few, that was I think that one of the first times of really we could feel identifiably that we were on the same page and we were really creating an entertainment experience for a brand without an ad agency, without anything. So it's cool.
E aqui no Brasil, como tem sido a receptividade das marcas para projetos de entretenimento? Assim, qual é o status atual disso? Né? Lógico, Porta dos Fundos é um exemplo muito bom disso, mas queria que você falasse sobre a indústria como um todo. Né? O que talvez falte ainda para as marcas abraçarem formatos mais longos e de entretenimento, especialmente?
Olha, é engraçado porque eu acho que as marcas, todo mundo está entendendo que aquela coisa, né? Conteúdo é o negócio, né? Eu acho que cada vez mais a gente está tentando abandonar a coisa da publicidade como a gente conhece para tentar entender outro tipo de conteúdo que possa abraçar as marcas. Só que ao mesmo tempo eu vejo, é por isso que eu digo que é tudo tão confuso, né? Ao mesmo tempo a gente tem agora os streamings abrindo os seus espaços, né, publicitários. Então, de alguma maneira, você sente o mercado vendo que, opa, peraí, agora vai ter uma enxurrada, só que daquilo que a gente já não estava mais muito achando que a gente ia, só que, de repente, é uma nova oportunidade que se cria. Eu acho que a gente ainda está no momento de descoberta. Não só as produtoras, não só o mercado publicitário, as agências e os clientes, mas as novas plataformas, elas também estão se entendendo, e isso dita muito do mercado como um todo. As próprias TVs, os antigos também estão tendo que se reentender, porque eles estão já vendo, eu não posso continuar como eu estava, eu preciso ser um streaming, e os streamings estão olhando, eu preciso ser mais igual à TV, e a gente fica no meio tentando aonde que a gente se encaixa nisso. Mas eu acho que, de qualquer maneira, o entendimento é de que as pessoas hoje elas querem conteúdo. E aí, quando você fala do Porta dos Fundos, a gente sempre fez isso meio que intrinsecamente. A gente nunca foi um planejamento nosso, mas sempre funcionou muito com isso. E acho que a gente também ajudou o mercado a olhar um pouco para o mercado brasileiro, olhar um pouco para isso e falar, poxa, isso aqui funciona realmente. E eu acho que a gente agora, lá no Porta, por exemplo, a gente está indo muito nessa direção, porque todo mundo conhece o Porta com os vídeos do YouTube, os brandeds que a gente faz, mas agora a gente está pensando, mas como é que a gente faz isso que a gente faz aqui para outras plataformas, como é que a gente faz isso para outros lugares, como é que a gente usa o Instagram do nosso cliente, como é que a gente pode fazer um brand dentro do especial de Natal, não só um product placement. Eu acho que a gente está tentando reentender agora vários formatos. A gente está... Hoje o Porta faz para tudo, né? Faz série de TV, faz filme, faz podcast, faz peça de teatro, mas é claro que a gente está tentando entender, mas dentro disso como é que a gente consegue botar o dinheiro das marcas Mas eu acho que é um momento de entender, reentender e repensar tudo.
E tem o Web3, multiversos, etc. Tudo isso para complicar essa equação, né? Já começou a pensar nisso, Ian?
Eu tô literalmente tentando entender isso do nível Web3? Mas tem gente lá vendo isso, mas eu não. É difícil para mim, é muito difícil.
I just had I was wondering, have you, in Porto de Fundos, have you worked directly with the brand to create a show or an entertainment or a piece of the show for a brand and to satisfy some creative or branding position for a particular brand, as in like maybe one assignment that is for Hewlett-Packard, and they had an idea to do something around sustainability or something like that. Could they come to you and create?
Sim. A gente fez, por exemplo, tem pouco tempo, a gente fez no Porta pro Instagram da Chevrolet, a gente fez uma série, 3 episódios, um formato completamente novo, mas era um programa, um show. É difícil não falar programa de TV, né? Era um show que a gente fez para eles, são 3 episódios, e era uma coisa especificamente, era completamente conteúdo, mas era um conteúdo que a gente fez um escape room dentro de um carro Onix. Então, o próprio show tinha as regras dele e a dinâmica dele feito para a gente apresentar o carro, mas apenas de uma maneira de conteúdo. A gente não tinha um momento onde a gente parava para dizer, isso funciona desse jeito. Isso fazia parte da dinâmica do jogo. Então, acho que sim, de alguma forma, a gente está procurando fazer isso. Como infelizmente, eu nem falei, o Porta dos Fundos é um canal que surgiu, ele vem do YouTube, a gente foi comprado pela Paramount, mas ele surgiu já com as marcas abraçando a gente fez no começo muito sucesso, então as marcas ficavam entendendo como entrar nisso. Então acho que sempre foi muito natural nosso a interação com as marcas desde o começo.
Para vocês também sempre foi muito natural, né? Desde 2002, com um case importante, né? A origem da empresa, na verdade, o antigo proprietário, né, que faleceu há algum tempo, ele veio da publicidade, né? Ele já tinha essa visão desde o começo, né? Fala um pouco sobre a história, para que as pessoas conheçam, porque é bem interessante a história da Anonymous.
We really were started from a company in the 90s called Propaganda Films. Propaganda Films was at the forefront of music videos, where directors like David Fincher, Michael Bay, Spike Jonze, and more were Anton Fuqua. We're just a bunch of punks figuring out, well, the cool music and let's shoot stuff and they're going to pay us. And music video business really turned into a business. From that, propaganda started to take on the commercial world, and took these same filmmakers and from brands got opportunities for them to shoot a Pepsi commercial, blah, blah, blah. I think the early days were probably connected a lot to music and artists. And then the commercial business really exploded into the 90s, and in 2000, Steve Golan left with David Fincher and a couple other people and sold Propaganda to Polygram. A little bit of a longer story, but left and started Anonymous. And the idea that he had ultimately was how could he build a company that was up and running in the commercial and music video space, but how could he build an environment to support filmmakers, storytellers through the growth trajectory of their career? And so he took the resources that he was able to build the commercials division with and started a management division. And what that did was give the company a little bit bigger footprint in the business, where the commercial clients started with the commercial clients being able to grow into more film opportunities. Some of the early films that the company made were with its own directors like Spike in the commercials side of the business. As we've grown, we now have that even expanded, I think, further in and around 2010. We went into the television business, and I think part of what the secret, Steve used to call it the secret sauce, or the unfair advantage that we had. This is around the time where we came out with a show called Mr. Robot, where we took the resources that we had inside the company and built our own entertainment in a way similar to how the feature film business would work. But we had a writer, we had the talent, and so we put the package together. Even before Mr. Robot was True Detective, really was the first big television sale. And so within the company, we're able to build these opportunities and then take them out to the market and sell them. And from there, the television business has really grown tremendously. We just finished shooting Alfonso Cuarón's show for Apple that will come out in a year, a little less than a year. We're shooting with Taika Waititi the reboot of Time Bandits right now in New Zealand. And next year we'll come out with Garth Davis's next film called Foe. So that side of the business has really grown, and it came from a place that was about representing its filmmakers, writers, and talent, and trying to put our arms around what we have inside. Because it's a lot easier for me to go to Phil Jalot with a crazy Web3 idea, because he's a client. He's like, and I don't have to talk to his agent and go through the whole entertainment maze of people that are paid to say no and to not push your idea forward. It's inside. So that has been really part of the secret sauce of the way Anonymous works. And now in the commercial side of the company, we still very much have a focus around bringing talent in that we can help build a career. So commercials is a wonderful opportunity to get to learn the craft, work with different crews, DPs, editors, designers, build sets, shoot underwater, whatever it is. And then to be able to support those filmmakers as they move forward and give them opportunities or help them find opportunities in entertainment, long form, television and film.
Quer falar, Ian?
Não, eu acho super interessante como a gente escuta, né, os diretores que começaram, né, e você fala, meu Deus, como é que pode ter sido isso? E eu fico pensando no início do Porta, que é engraçado, eu acho que eu nunca tinha pensado nisso, como é completamente diferente ao contrário. Eu sou o único diretor lá, somos 5 sócios do início, e começou com roteiristas. Deve ter sido uma das únicas produtoras que eu conheço que, na verdade, começou pelo roteiro. Eram ideias que a gente queria fazer, muito menos por um visual ou por uma estética, né? Claro, também sou diretor, mas eu lembro que o início era, poxa, a gente não consegue fazer esses roteiros aqui em outros lugares. Então, assim, fiquei pensando como que curioso, né, o início de uma outra produtora, e ele estava falando, né, do Secret Sauce, e eu acho que é um pouco do que o Porta foi naquele momento, né? Eu acho que naquele momento estavam precisando daquilo, de roteiro. Achei curioso isso, me deu...
É interessante como vocês vão adaptando as empresas, né? Começou com uma empresa de propaganda e hoje é uma empresa de conteúdo. O Porta começou com roteiristas, hoje é né, tem tudo, faz absolutamente tudo em produção. Sim. Como vocês vão adaptando as empresas de vocês ao mercado, né? A gente está mais próximo do fim, bem mais próximo do fim, na verdade, do que do começo. Eu queria abrir para que vocês aproveitem o nosso convidado internacional, o Ian, que é super interessante. Fiquem à vontade para fazer perguntas, por favor. Temos uma ali.
So, good morning here. So, at the beginning of the panel, you talk about how back in the day you had this, the TV programming came from brands. So you had 4 outputs, basically the 4 networks or 6 networks, and the content would be paid for brands, and they would be there. So now we have this massive range of outputs like Apple TV, Disney, Netflix, and so on. Do you see the possibility of this symbiotic relation between brands, like branded content inside of streaming?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think there's almost no turning back now, because in the early days of television, you had no choice. If you wanted to watch whatever show, you had to sit in your living room, turn on the television, and it did what it did, and you watched it. And so without that, and now into the subscription business where now, and I think I hear Brazil's going to be one of the first Netflix commercial markets where they're including advertising. That hasn't happened yet in the States, but I think brands are really, there's no turning back. They have to find space. They have to find ways to connect to their audiences. And if it isn't in an overt commercial or a banner or a 6-second piece that you see on your web browser while you're doing whatever, or you push pause on your dish TV and you see an ad on the pause, then they're going to go to the content itself and try and create content like you just were describing, that does the work of communicating the brand message. I think the really hardworking advertising about the way the car works or the phone works or insurance or whatever, there's always going to, I believe, there'll always be a place for that somewhere, but I believe it's getting shorter and shorter and shorter and very targeted and very focused and compressed in time. And then I think that, as I say, brands are looking to harness the entertainment opportunity to express themselves as well.
I think we have 2 people looking for questions. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask you, taking from the TV question that he just made, I feel like I've seen it outside from previous experience of mine, how brands are getting more involved into the cinema feature format of things. And I feel like in Brazil, not that I'm too familiar with the market here, but there's still a difficulty of brands here seeing how, if I do an advertising, I see the return of investment so much more, much quicker. And if I'm going on the film, it's much more a prestige. Not necessarily, it's so hard nowadays because the industry is so volatile to understand how much money you're gonna make. Obviously, you can think about cast and what size of your director, but when you look at how the prestige that you might be getting if a brand, if your film is going to a Cannes or to a Sundance, to a Venice. So I would love to hear what, I don't think there's a right answer, but what are ways that we can try and get to the brands to understand that it's, the prestige that they're building with the clients. They're gonna see they're supporting that type of content, depending on what marginalized community you might be supporting or what kind of crew that you might be having in that type of film. Anyways.
Yeah, I think it's always really super critical to know exactly, if you're talking about trying to get brand funding or partnering with a brand, to know exactly what they want. I think it's almost futile, from my own personal experience, to have the best idea ever and try and convince a brand to do it. It just, no matter the star or the director or the idea, if it isn't something that fits exactly with their strategy or focus for the quarter or the year or the 5-year period, whatever, it's really, really difficult. So I'd say number one is you have to understand exactly what the brand wants. And ideally, then you develop it with them so that they own it with, I don't mean literally, well, and literally sometimes, but they own the creative development with you. So it's yours and theirs, and you've made it together. I think that's probably one of the biggest hurdles in the process. I think the idea of return on investment is getting back to marketing and entertainment. Entertainment knows, well, it's now the Wild West, but knows if they make this movie with these stars, they're going to expect this amount of box office in these countries. It's a formula, 100%. Put in Tom Cruise or put in Brad Pitt or put in someone lower down, you make less, more, how much to spend on the movie, how long it runs, they know the math. And so when you're talking about entertainment for marketers, they want that same, they want the return on investment, they want to know. And I think the really smart brands, in my experience, have the know-how to be able to understand the content that they want to make once you've gotten to that point, and understand how its utility will affect its return. Like they have the expertise in the brand strategy and media departments. The media companies are brilliant at exactly this, knowing how this kind of content, a particular piece of content, will play in certain different kinds of digital media or however it can be placed. So I'd say it's those sort of two things. You do have to be conscious of it. You do have to be conscious of what the return will be, because they are. And you do have to know what they want.
Ok. Temos dois caminhos. Fazer mais uma pergunta e atrasar um pouquinho a programação ou encerrar. Vamos fazer mais uma, mas assim, debate presidencial. 30 segundos de pergunta, 1 minuto de resposta. E a gente vai cortar o microfone. Please, go ahead.
Okay, so this is a question, I guess, for both of you. And I think Ian is going to have a different answer from yours. What's the proportion? It's a question of the chicken or the egg. It's like, do you have the content and you sell it to the brands? Or do you get the brands to invest in content that's not there yet? Or in material that's still in the making? So my question is it easier for you guys to make the content and sell that content? Oh, I think that this piece of this script is probably better for, I don't know, Heineken. This script is probably better for GM or whatever. Or actually, in anonymous content, as you said before, sometimes you produce something that you really believe in, and then you sell it to the brand. So what's the proportion of all the things that you do that are already made and you sell them to the brand as something palpable for them, or something that's still in the very early stages of imagination, and you're able to sell them that in that stage? So that to me is a mystery. I don't know. What do you guys have to say about that?
From our standpoint, it's 0% things that we have that we can just sell, and it's 100% developing something together with a brand. If they're not involved in it, they really, most 99% of the time, you can't just sell it. They have to have had some agency in developing it so that it works exactly for them.
Concordo, e é o que ele estava falando antes, né? Cada vez está mais justo o orçamento, então você tem que estar cada vez mais justo na necessidade do cliente. Eu acho que não tem como, ainda mais na nossa realidade de Brasil, a gente chegar com alguma coisa, não mais, né? A gente vê cada vez mais agora os orçamentos diminuindo e a oferta aumentando, né? Porque o que parece às vezes uma oportunidade, essa coisa dos streamings estarem abrindo, eu vejo como vai dar uma, como é que chama isso? Uma espalhada no dinheiro. Então, assim, eu acho que cada vez mais a gente tem que ir no alvo.
Excelente, muito obrigado. Eric, thank you so much for being here. Ian, muito obrigado.